I make it real. I want them to identify themselves as someone who could be like these mentees who are now mentors. So yeah, so it is very important for me to collect these success stories and document these success stories, because this message really speaks a lot about the program, and that's the reason how clients will come back over and over again, because through word of mouth, these clients have given us a lot of recommendations. A lot of clients, some of them are like husbands and wife. Like the husband came into Canada first, and then eventually after a year, the wife came, and the husband just have lots of great feedback about the program, and that's how we get mentees. Like even sometimes we are just very happy to know that yeah, clients are just recommending us because of their friends and families. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And by the way, yeah, I would just like to acknowledge these mentees also in Fort McMurray, right? So yeah, this picture was actually taken when we were in Fort McMurray. And yeah, I think the Fort McMurray group could also use the power of this success story of Renosh.
I just wanted to thank you so much, Sarah, for your presentation, and you know, it's something that, and I know we've had over the last the community calls as well as the boot camp, previous boot camp, with a focus on, you know, sort of recruitment of mentors, and that's that seems to be always that seems to always overshadow the recruitment of mentees. And I think for all of you who are considering mentorship programs and working on mentorship programs, recruitment really sort of saddles both mentors and mentees, and you'll have ebbs and flows on both sides. And there'll be times where the economy is a certain way, or the time of year, the calendar year is a certain time of the year, and you'll notice ebbs and flows. So I think one of the things to remember is that recruitment is something that you need to think about on both the sort of the demand and supply side, so the employer and the employee side of the equation.
So I do have a question, Sarah, about this orientation session. So you say that everybody's on a wait list until the orientation session is happening. So I'm wondering, in case participants are not able to participate on orientation, do you guys reach out or follow up with them, or they just stay on waiting list until or you guys, you have ongoing orientation session?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, at the start of the fiscal year, we identified dates for the orientation sessions. And yeah, those dates are already pre-arranged. So if the mentee cannot attend at the first orientation session, where the first cohort wherein he's qualified to join, there's an opportunity for him to join the next cohort. So I usually follow up after the orientation. I usually check with the mentees that we miss him in that orientation session. I'm just checking if there's any problem, if there's any things that is happening that would be useful for us to know, and if he wants to share with us or whatever. So, but yeah, there's an opportunity for the mentee to join the next session. However, there's constant follow-up, but yeah, there's only such like a window for me to consider them to be still engaged, because like maybe after 4 orientation sessions and they're still not interested, I have this feeling that they're not really committed, and it's quite hard for us to present those type of mentees to a mentor, because if they're not communicating with us, right, like we also consider that kind of attitude would also pass over to the mentor. So I also try to decide on a case-to-case basis whether I should keep that mentee or not. If he's not responding, then I have to decide whether to withdraw him from the program as well.
Great. That's a great question, Stella. And Sarah, I love the way that ERIEC rolls people through on the cohorts. And you're absolutely right. You can judge a lot about a mentee's commitment and time by their ability to be able to make one of those orientation sessions. Stella, at CRIAC in Calgary, we started with a cohort system, I think the first 2 years, and then we realized that it was really probably for us just as easy to do rolling orientations. So it's more labor intensive, but so people are not waiting for time periods. If you join us, as soon as we can get you through the registration system, meet with you, then we're probably able to bring you through some sort of an orientation process. It just means it's more labor intensive. So if you don't have big numbers, then you can consider if it fits with your team and with your schedule. So what Doug and I and Sarah and Azume and others have found is that it really, what fits your organization, what fits the newcomers in your area. The cohort system works beautifully. The individual, a bit more labor intensive, but in certain times can work really effectively as well. So yeah. So you've got a couple of really good options there.
And I would say that you know, with smaller numbers, you can play with that a little bit. As you can see, the process that we have meets the need that we have, and as you can see with Sarah, it gives her, as you can see, the process gives her a chance to engage with the client at a number of different points. And, you know, like it's, you know, some people say, well, just take your clients in and just get them involved with the program. This is, it's a little bit of a test as well, just to see how committed, how, because everybody will say, oh yeah, I want to be a part of a mentorship program. And our concern is we don't want to put the mentor through something with somebody who's not serious. And because that's not going to bode well for your program and the reputation of your program. So having some of those hurdles, it's not because we love red tape and we love to have people go through a process. It suits the needs of the program to ensure people are committed, but also that we have the paperwork in place, that we can make a good assessment, that we can make a good match. But as Bruce said, in the early days, you may want to look at something perhaps a little bit more as like a rolling sort of program. That might be more suitable. But I guess the point is there's a number of ways of doing this. And for us, this works the best considering the numbers that we have.
I would say, while people are thinking of a question, one of the things that Doug and I have sort of played around with throughout the entire decade or so that we've been doing this in our respective cities is that recruitment. And I know that at CRIAC, for a while, most of our mentees came from other immigrant serving agencies, and then that got slow. And so then it was a lot of word of mouth, and it was out speaking to any number of groups. I don't know how many Saturdays we've spent, Doug, at libraries and churches and mosques and talking to people, different ethnic specific groups, different service organizations. And then we're in a world right now where I think we're probably back up to about 80% of our mentees come from other immigrant serving agencies. So what that means is that we have to be on the same page as those other immigrant serving agencies. And so it would be a question of, they know what our expectations are. We know the kind of clients that they have. It has to be a good match. So that means then constant conversation with those other immigrant serving agencies on a very regular basis. You don't want their clients to be disappointed. And at the same time, you want them to know exactly what they're going to step into when they come to a mentoring program like ERIEC or CRIAC. So a lot of this stuff, a lot of coffee, either, and then a lot of maybe two styles. One, very sometimes kind of formal conversations like Sarah's awesome presentation. Imagine doing that in any number of other agencies so that they understand what you have to offer. And then just a lot of informal conversations and coffees about what we think our program might be able to do for your clientele. And so it means that you're constantly out there. And the clientele doesn't necessarily just have to come from another immigrant serving agency. It could come from another group that attracts newcomer professionals to their circles. So it could be a service organization, could be a house of faith, it could be any number of places. You'd be surprised at the places Doug and I find mentees and mentors on a Saturday in the Tim's lineup in pre-COVID days, to any number of places. So just sort of being open and having your story, having your 2-minute pitch ready to go to say, oh, we're running a great mentoring program that some of your folks might be interested in. Here, let me connect with you over coffee and we can sort of share some of our ideas and expectations.
As you can see, when Sarah mentioned she wears a couple of hats, I think we're constantly wearing different hats when we're in the mentorship program. We're either selling the program or recruiting, we're marketing, we're counseling, we're connecting sometimes. And I think one of the things that I like about our program, and as Sarah says, and people get wonder why they have to go through an information session, and then kind of confused that they have to go through an orientation session, like what's the difference. And those are really important distinctions. And the part is that maybe people think they need a mentorship program, which I would say everybody needs a mentorship program. Everybody needs a mentor in their lives for sure. But you have to really sort of ask yourself, are you going, do you really want this mentorship? Is this a good time for you? And are you in the right mindset? I think that's what Sarah's alluding to. And by having them go through a bit of a process leads them to that. That's like they start to convince themselves, yes, you know what? Because a lot of people just, when you ask them, and I've done interviews with our clients as well when we used to meet them face to face, and we ask them, how do you define mentorship? And everybody has their own definition of it. Have they ever experienced a mentorship program before? And they're kind of like, well, it's, at university, I had somebody, or maybe it was my father or my mother or somebody, an uncle or an aunt who guided me, and those are mentored-like relationships for sure. But just getting them to reflect on what that was all about, what kind of role did they play in your lives, and so it's sort of getting them to reflect and go back and for some they say, well, we don't actually know what mentorship means. It looks like a good word, sounds really friendly, it sounds like something I need, so I'm going to go proceed ahead. Or they've heard from friends that they've gone through a mentorship program and it's like, I think I could do that too. I think this is, it's somebody's going to lead me to a job. But I think what we want them to do is explore the concept of mentorship just beyond just getting a job. That's our hope for all of them, right? For all of our clients, that they get that goal. But our goal is beyond getting a job. It's about having a trusted place to have that information transfer occur. So, when we have questions about how to operate in a new business culture, in a new environment, you can ask those questions without fear of maybe it's a colleague at work or somebody that you don't really know. That it's a trusted exchange of information, and you can get some things ironed out when you're not really sure. And so that's kind of one of our goals, is to help develop those strategies, that you develop the strategy in concert with your mentor, and the mentor kind of helps and guides you through that. And then some of the results of that could be, getting the dream job, or getting a transition job, or a job that leads to something, that's going to be hopefully one of the end results. But we want you to practice mentorship in a really sort of intentional sort of way, in a reflective kind of way, and understand that culture.
Yeah, well said, Doug. One of the things that we started doing years ago was doing sharing circles at the end of a mentoring relationship, and if we could get enough people who kind of started and finished at the same time, it was really good. And to Doug's point, getting a job was not ever the first thing that somebody talked about. Even if they secured a job during their mentoring or just thereafter, it wasn't the first thing that they spoke of when they spoke about the power of their relationship with their mentor. It was somewhere in the top 3 or somewhere in the top 5, but as Doug said, we learn all these interesting things. And recently I learned that several mentees were thrilled that they could add to their toolkit of considerable skills the ability to find mentors for the rest of their life. So this was a lifelong tool that was put in their toolkit that said, when you're seeking mentors, as we all do, so I'm 63 this year, I still need mentors to help me get through the next 25 years. But the skills I learned when I was 13, when I had my first mentor, I still use today. And so it's amazing the kinds of things that pop out, and what Doug and I and Cheryl and everybody else running mentoring programs, Sarah, try to do is we try to not just focus on this end goal of a job, which is important, but at the same time, it could be temporary in the sense that jobs could come and go. The skills you put in your toolkit will always be there. And then the last piece was, and it's something that we hear constantly, and I heard it said about me. So I, like Doug and Sarah, mentor folks as well. And I remember the very first time that one of my favorite mentees, Charles Asushi, who's a rock star lawyer in Calgary now, said to me, he said this in a public forum. I wasn't sure where he was going. So he said, I don't remember a thing Bruce told me. We've been friends. I've been his mentor for about 6 years. He says, I don't remember a thing Bruce told me. I'm thinking, okay, I wasn't very effective as a mentor. And he said, no, but I remember how he makes me feel every conversation that I'm in. Every time I come out of a conversation with Bruce, I feel like I'm 10 feet tall and I can take on the world. And so for him, it had nothing to do with the job. It had to do with some inner sense. And so we all know that mentees are finding these different kind of milestone successes. And I think what it is really is it's they're increasing their own confidence, which they always had, or they're putting another tool in their toolkit. And so again, but to Sarah's point, it begins at the very start. It begins when you first meet that client, right, Sarah? When you first meet them and you're getting from them what they need. And that's where you set expectations and you help them to sort of navigate where they're going. And that's what I think really makes the both the ERIEC program and the ERIEC program so successful, is that we have those conversations about expectations and navigation and really early. And to Sarah's point, if Jimmy or Susan are not coming back, they're not answering emails, they're not answering phone calls, Sarah kind of knows, okay, so they're either super busy or for whatever reason, mentoring is not really on the table for them right now. And maybe let's set it aside.
I have just a curiosity, I don't know who wants to speak to this, Stella or Rana, or, Corinne and Holly, where are you seeing the flow or the source of potential, people who could be mentees? Like what's the kind of pipeline you're tapping for those mentee candidates?
For mentees now, we are, since, it's our first time that we're running this program, we are trying to reach our clients, like our clients, eligibility clients, newcomers, new immigrants, permanent resident, protected refugee person, new Canadian citizen, and Canadian citizen, French speaker. So we're because we have to also, the mentee eligibility should be aligned with our program eligibility. For the mentor, we are accepting even from outside Fort McMurray. Anyone is willing to volunteer as a mentor, we are accepting. But for mentees, we have to target our eligible clients. I have a question.
Oh, yes. Keep going.
No problem. Go ahead.
I think for us, if we're going to look at our mentorship program, we would definitely be looking at our existing client base. Who are those vulnerable businesses, those ones that have just started in the last 6 months or a year that could really use some extra support. So yeah, we're basically starting with our existing client base. We've got some great relationships here in our community. We've got a newcomer to Canada program here as well through our Lloyd Immigration Partnership. So we're going to be using that network as well to reach out to newcomers who have that awesome entrepreneurial spirit that they bring to our communities. So definitely need to work on engaging with that group as well.
No, yeah, thanks for that. I was just curious about, like, because I think it's one of the things that we had assumed a little bit, and I kind of want to check that, you know, it's easiest to start with the people who you're already connected with, and as you say, who are already kind of fall under your eligibility guidelines for your other programming. I was just curious about whether there's any kind of difference in terms of readiness, or different, you know, the kind of expectations piece that both Doug and Bruce were pointing to. You know, that like what's behind the person who's ready for mentorship. But you know, I'm certainly hearing what Sarah and others have said to that. Rana, you had a question that had come up.
Yeah, I had a technical question. I don't know who can answer this question. So now, next week, we will start working on matching mentor and mentee. So since it's new for us, everything is new, and we are working online from home. So we are struggling a little bit with the how and when we have to inform participants about their partners. Like, how is it a good idea to inform them, to put them together by email, to introduce them to each other by email? When do we have to do this? Like before orientation session, after orientation session? So we are planning to do 2 orientation sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, to have to offer more availability for participants, especially those who are working. So they have 2 options to attend orientation session on February 23 and 23rd and 25th. So just if you can advise us about how can we put them together, how we can introduce mentors and mentees, like the partners that are gonna work together, and when is the best time? Like the program will start on March 8th, the orientation February 23rd and February 26th. Do we have to do before or after?
I can answer that. So with ERIEC, what we do is we conduct the orientation session, and yeah, the purpose of the orientation session is to prepare the clients on what to do once they're introduced to the mentor. So we normally discuss about the mentorship agreement, and in the mentorship agreement, there's those reminders, right? Like when we were doing this pre-COVID, we even are giving them some guidelines on what to wear and everything. So yeah, so those criteria, those things that you would like the mentees to consider while they're meeting the mentor, you have to put that in the agreement, right? Like the confidentiality, the privacy of the information that the mentors are sharing. We even discussed that during the orientation session. We also tell them that they have to wait for the email of our mentorship director. So Azumi is the one who's doing the matches, and once she's done with the matching, she introduces both the mentor and the mentee, and the mentee will acknowledge the email and will introduce that email, will introduce himself in that email, and will thank the mentor for accepting him as a mentee. So yeah, so we also coach the mentees what to expect when they receive that email. And yeah, they will initiate and ask the mentor about his availability, because we always want to consider the mentor's availability. That's why part of the criteria of becoming a mentee is you have to be flexible, right? Because it's not the other way around. I've heard some stories when I was still not in the program, that there are mentees who are the one who asking the mentors to be available for them. So we're priming them during the orientation sessions, because we don't want the same scenario to happen again this time. So I also share with them some of those stories, right? Like that we want to make these programs efficient for you and the mentor as well. And eventually you will become a mentor, and you don't want to feel that new mentees are doing this for you. So basically that's the intention of the mentorship orientation. We have to prime them on what to expect and what to do during the mentoring partnership with the mentor.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it's about providing, because it doesn't matter how many times, hey Sarah, how many times we say what we say with them, there's still misinterpretations sometimes, or assumptions that are made by the client, and so I think, you know, having opportunities to keep reinforcing the message on and really really being sort of accommodating to the mentor, understanding that the mentor is providing the mentee their valuable time, their business time to do this kind of work. So they have to realize what they're receiving as a gift is gold, and so, you know, they have to learn to respect that in that relationship. So and it clarifies the expectations.
You know, I think part of the other conversation that Sarah and Doug and Cheryl and I have, and others have with our clients, is really what to expect from this particular relationship. And you know, it's and we even have to have those conversations with the mentors. You know, mentors are not expected to find the mentee employment. That's not the. And in some cultures, mentoring means different things. And so where I grew up, mentoring meant something different than it does in an employment-related mentoring session. So really good open conversations with folks at the very beginning. And I think that's part of Sarah's overall assessment and the work, similar work we would do at CRIAC, just making sure that that mentees understood what this relationship was going to be all about. And so I love the power of mentoring conversations, because it gets people thinking about what mentoring has meant to them before they land on the ERIEC doorstep or the CRIAC doorstep. And so it's a really good opportunity to have a really robust, honest, authentic conversation about what you might be able to expect from this mentoring relationship. You know, Jimmy's not going to go into his Rolodex, make 4 phone calls, and you get a job. That isn't the way mentoring works, and at least not here. But mentoring can do the following, you know, and those open conversations, I think, are really good. What it does do is it means that you're going to have a lot less work, right, Sarah, down the road. If, you know, people aren't going to be coming to you and say, hey, Sarah, you promised me Jimmy was going to get me a job. And you said, no, that we made clear that wasn't the case. Yeah. And so having those good open conversations about what mentoring can be. And I think that's an important role that the mentoring group really plays. You're just setting your clients up for success down the road, right? You want to see success, and it really starts, as Sarah says, at the very first conversation.
Yeah, I remember a mentor saying to me, yeah, no worries, I'm gonna, you know, as soon as I become a mentor, you know, I know so many people, I know where all the jobs are, you know, these guys have great qualifications, or all of these clients. It won't take me long to find them work. And it was like, my first thought was, that's great, but you're not really understanding the, you know, part of this, and big part of this is a relationship. Yeah, you can find them a job, that'd be great, but they still will lack that understanding, those essential skills, the soft skills. They'll lack that discussion. So yeah, you might be able to find them work, but they're still going to face some of those dilemmas, issues, problems with adaptation, integration, because they haven't had that discussion. Getting them work is awesome, but having those discussions is going to be a lot more powerful and make the client, the mentee, more resilient. So I think that you know, what Bruce said too is like, yeah, different people have different interpretations of what a mentor's role is. Like a good mentor, in my mind, would ask me the question, you know, instead of giving me the answer. Because if they ask me the question, then I have to really think about it. It's like, well, no, that's, you know, I wanted you to help me out and get a solution for my issue here. No, but a good mentor, I think, is going to ask the right question and have you look inside what kinds of things I need to do in order to get to a solution that I will come up with the backing of my mentor. And one last thing to think about from this perspective, think about how you feel. And I think that what Bruce said about how his mentee, how he felt after meeting with Bruce, Think about that. Think about that and how you feel when you've been backed up by somebody who believes in you, somebody who gives you, some strength. They may have not given you something concrete that you really wanted, but if they made you feel good about yourself, confident about yourself and going forward, oh my God, that's gold. And at the end of the day, your success will be your success. And so always think about that in terms of when you're helping clients. Think about how you felt in the past when you've had supports in your life, and use that. Go to that touchstone when you're working with clients. Go to that part of your heart and how you felt, because you need to get people in touch with that.
One of the things, and thanks, Doug, one of the things that I think we're all recognizing is that mentoring is not a transactional thing. It's not a machine. You are not machines, you're human beings. And so you bring all of your sense of empathy and your personality to what you do. And we often say mentoring is probably more aspirational than it is anything else. And as part of the mentoring team, I constantly remind myself every day that my job is to help run the mentoring program, but at the same time make people feel confident within reason and like a realistic sense. Point them in the right direction, hear their stories. Oftentimes, as a mentor myself, I'm sitting in a conversation, and believe it or not, I say nothing. I'm all ears. My job is to be a deep listener that day, just understanding. And then maybe at the end, I'll never forget, a mentee wanted to meet with me. She had a tough weekend. She called me on Saturday at noontime. I took the call and I said, let's have coffee on Monday. So she's not a coffee drinker, she's a tea drinker. So we met at our favorite tea shop, and she had a tea, and we both sat there for half an hour. Not one word was exchanged, not one word. And at the end of half hour, she said, thank you for listening. And then she said, I feel great. And she left. And that was our mentoring session. And I realized that my job as a mentor, my job as part of a mentoring team, is to respond to the needs of the mentee that fit with what that mentee needs for their own toolkit going forward. And it is labor intensive. Mentoring is not a machine. You're not going to connect and forget. So Rana, when you connect people, ask Sarah how many times she's circling back with people to make sure things are good, things are still on track. It's a labor of love at the end of the day. And I think that's why we don't mentor 1,000 people a year. You mentor a select number that you can handle, your team can handle. Mentoring is a human dynamic. And all the foibles that come with that, of course, all the great things that come with the human dynamic as well. And it's something that we remind ourselves constantly of every day.
Sarah, I was wondering, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but from your own perspective, because you've sat in all the chairs now, right? Like mentee, mentor, facilitator, and mentor. What helped you be ready for mentorship as a mentee? Like what told you that this was a good thing to do?
Yeah, I really, from the start, when I came to know about mentorship, I was automatically hooked into it, right? Like, because I've seen a lot of success stories, and I've visited several organizations, and everyone is recommending about mentorship. And personally, I also believe about the power of mentorship, because throughout my life, I had several mentors as well, even back in the Philippines. And what I like about mentorship, if you don't mind, I will be sharing this my screen again. And I always also share this during the mentorship orientation. There's a lot of newcomers who had been through a lot already, right? Like they are facing a lot of challenges, a lot of new things are happening, and sometimes we lose that confidence, right? Like, I meet a lot of mentees, I could see their potential, right? Like, they're trying everything, all the programs that is available, and the most common thing that you could see is that they have the potential, but sometimes they lose the confidence. They cannot find their hidden tiger, right? And that's why I also experienced the same thing. So that maybe that's the power of the storytelling, right? Like I always tell them, I've been a mentee as well. I understand where you're coming from. I've experienced those challenges, and I surpassed those challenges because of the opportunity that was given to me by my mentor. I had a mentor with ERIEC. I also tried to find my own mentor. I had a mentor that I met through LinkedIn. I had a mentor that I met through networking, right? And the most important thing that I got from the mentor, they didn't help me find a job. I made it clear that it was through my own effort as well, but through the help of the mentors by finding the hidden tiger. My mentor told me how to find the hidden tiger, right? Like this, in this illustration, I always give this illustration to clients and tell them that it's like the hidden job market. They're trying to tell you that you could find the hidden tiger, but you're thinking of like a real tiger, like an illustration of that of like a tiger or a picture of a tiger. But we don't know. Sometimes in the job postings, they're looking for something else aside from the picture, right? They're looking in this illustration. They're actually looking for uh, the word, the hidden tiger, and it's inside the stripes of the tiger, right? So there's a T, an H, an E, an H, and I, D, D, E, N, and there's the word, the hidden tiger. So it's like the job search. Only the mentor knows how to find the hidden tiger at this point in time because we're in a new environment, right? And at the same time, I always try to tell them that our mentors has three roles. Their roles is not to find them a jobs, but their roles are they are consultants. They're there to give them information about industry information. They're there to counsel you. Like they need to, as Bruce have mentioned, they need to assess your needs. And at the same time, they're there to support you when the times are tough, right? And those qualities or those things that they're doing will help you find your way. So it is still you who has to find your inner hidden tiger. So yes, I believe this story, this way of telling them that this is what to expect, but there's also an expectation. The mentors also has expectations out of you. So as Bruce had mentioned, there has to be expectations on what to expect about the program. Although we tell them that the mentors will not be the one to find them jobs, but there's a lot of success stories that and because of those skills, they were able to find their own job as well. So that's what attracted me to be part of the program, because I want to be self-sufficient as well. Like I always tell them that we are all adult learners, and as adult learners, we don't want people to just teach us. We want to apply those principles and gain the success out of those principles as well.
I'd like to add that before Sarah came on board with ERIEC in terms of in a formal way, I mean, when she was a mentee at one point, but I mean, she also spoke at our annual Global Talent Conference, which really put, I know that was a little bit of out of her comfort zone, but I think what that said to me, especially for Sarah, is that there was, 250 people in the audience, and she sat down and gave that presentation of her story. And the articulation of that story is such an important part of your finding your hidden tiger. And I remember Sarah being a little anxious about it, but taking it on, and just thinking what courage it took for her to tell her story like that in front of 250 people, a lot of them, sort of professional immigrants themselves and employers, and talked about her experience of coming to Canada, being in Fort McMurray, and coming to Edmonton. It was such a compelling story, and that to me is part of her journey. And I think that is also an example, a role model to others. You got to be able to tell your story and use your story as a powerful learning tool. And that to me is the essence of being a mentor, or being somebody who can help out, is if you know your story and you're a good listener to other people's stories, that's going to be very helpful.
Speaking of the Global Talent Conference, this year's Global Talent Conference, the afternoon keynote speaker is an old colleague of mine, Professor Andy Malinsky. And Andy wrote a book years ago called Global Dexterity, and it's your ability to maneuver in different kinds of social and economic cultures. And so fascinating idea, and we're really looking forward to it. One of his notions is a phrase that I love, and to Doug's point about storytelling and knowing who you are, it's called, Andy talks about finding your zone of authenticity. So it's finding a world when you land in a different place, you walk into a different boardroom or a different workplace, to find a way of navigating through that space, but you're still authentically you. You haven't lost the essence of who you are. And I was not raised in Calgary. I was raised in the woods, as I like to say, in northern New Brunswick. And so moving to various cities, Montreal and Toronto, were all quite shocking. And I really had to learn how to navigate my own space. And so part of the conversations we have with mentees and mentors is to remind them that the mentoring process is not about losing who you were if you're a newcomer. It's maintaining the essence of that and finding a way to tell, to Doug's point, that story about your past experience in a way that will resonate with Canadian ears or Canadian employers. And so the mentor plays a role. Sometimes, to Doug's point, mentors see their role as somebody that can help the newcomer tell their story. And so storytelling is a very important part of what we do. And so what we've learned, I think, at both CRIAC and ERIEC, is to embrace all these different strategies. You're finding the thing that's going to work for the mentee and work for the mentor. And that's what the mentoring team is all about. Listening. We have our rules and regs down. We've got our processes. We have our procedures. We know what happens when. But in between the gaps is this firm understanding that people are trying to find their way. We want them to find their way, never losing sight of who they are in themselves. And so the mentors, without even recognizing it, play this incredibly important role. The mentees are really blessed to be able to find that. Conversely, every mentor tells us how blessed they are to be able to listen to stories. And that helps them become better people, become better professionals. And so, yeah, that authentic two-way learning. And it really begins with an understanding that mentoring is not a piece of machinery. You are an important person within that piece of your mentoring program. And so the more humanism you bring into the program as a program coordinator or program director, the better the outcomes are going to be for both mentee and for mentor.
I just, sorry, Cheryl, I know I'm going to probably preempt you a little bit. I know we got 15 minutes left, and I really would like for this part maybe to be, I mean, Bruce and I and Sarah and Cheryl, we can share all day, stories, anecdotes, tips, but we're going to put this back onto your plate right now. And what's, is there anything that you would like to know from us in these last 15 minutes? This won't be the last time we meet, I know, but is there something that comes to mind that you guys would like to ask us, or any concerns or any victories that you've had? I know that you're in the process of actually implementing something, so even sharing some of your minor victories would be great. Love to hear those, but yeah, just put it back on your plate.
I just would like to share something with you concerning recruiting mentee. Since I'm dealing with mentees and mentors for now, so I found out that you have to be very patient and persistent in your following up with, especially with mentees. Like sometimes I have to call the same client 5 times just to get the application form. So really it requires a lot of persistence in your job and to be very patient. I try to use sometimes follow up via email. Sometimes I have to call them. So just to boost and check down to, we need the application. Since we're gonna start on Monday, the matching process. So we really need those application forms to be able to know about their professional and educational background, but it's hard. So it's like to do this follow-up with mentee. I know that we acknowledge they are busy, maybe they're working, they have different things to do, family issues, but yeah, just I would love to share this with you.
You've never faced that, Sarah, have you?
Actually, it's Gustav. Gustav is the one who's like telling me like, oh, Sarah, yeah, I have these clients. Like I've been following them. I've been sending them this invitation for them to attend the information session. I've sent several follow-ups and they're not answering the email. I even tried phoning them and they're not answering. And yeah, I just acknowledge Gustav's patience because even though he doesn't receive any response, he keeps on coming back. But he gives it time, right? Like if this month this person did not respond, he will follow up after several months. Oh, again, it's me, Gustav. I've seen that you applied for the program. You've registered for the program, and on this, blah blah blah. And yeah, he's successful doing that. He was telling me, Sarah, I have to recycle again. I have to go back to those applications from last 3 months because we need people for this info session this Thursday. So yeah, he keeps on recycling. He never gives up, right? Like he's telling me that okay, it's been 6 months, but he's still not responding. But yeah, he still keeps on following up. Maybe he accepts that lots of our clients are like this. There are issues coming along the way, right? And then yeah, he just never gives up and tries his best to catch them as much as possible.
Sometimes, I feel like shy, like I'm really bugging them a lot with my emails and my phone calls, leaving voicemail, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
I have
Gustav is strategizing. Like if this month he had been bugging them a lot, then he will stop. Like he will become silent for a while, and then eventually he will again recycle. When there's not a lot of new clients signing up, then he will say, Sarah, give me this time. I will recycle. I'm trying to fish from way back then, from applications from 6 months from now. So yeah, so he strategized by trying to be very persistent and then staying quiet and then coming back.
It's kind of like a fine balance too. You want to be tenacious and you want to keep on them because you think that you yourself might think that they're really good clients and they should be involved with this. But they also, it's a two-way street. They have to be ready for it. You don't want to push them into something and then all of a sudden they're not ready and then they'll feel like they had been pushed into it. So nudging is probably what the main skill of Gustav is. He's a good nudger. Although he'll share with us, he'll sometimes say, I'm not sure about this client. I'm not sure if they're really ready or committed. And that's something he'll share with us. But then, like you said, like Sarah was saying, he'll sometimes give that a little bit of a break, some breathing room, and then check in again. And sometimes that next engagement might be the time that they are ready.
Rhonda, that's a great question. We've also found too, though, that sometimes mentees thought they were ready. We thought they were ready, and then they go radio silent for a month. And one of the strategies that we use is we might invite a number of folks into maybe it's a larger session, maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's a workshop of some sort. Just again, it's sort of a confidence building approach. And then that leads them to thinking, oh, okay, I do feel more confident. I do have the time. So, sometimes the radio silence is because they have so many things going on in their life, as you know. Other times, as Doug says, there's a little bit of a reticence or a hesitance on their side. They may well be ready, but they need, maybe there's this interim step, and sometimes we'll run a workshop. Maybe it's a fun, engaging workshop. Learn about networking or learn about something. And folks will then come, and then the engagement, might start right after the workshop. Hey, love the workshop. Now I think I'm ready to go. So patience is, Doug, Sarah, is often the name of the game, right? And having somebody like Gustav on your team helps.
Well, and I think, we talked about this in the kind of coaching session, just being committed to the offer of there's a real benefit here for you when you're ready. And and maybe taking a less of a personal stance of, you know, they're not saying yes to me or they're not picking up my call, but just understanding, you know, as Doug and Bruce just said, the moment's not right yet. You know, there's a lot of things going on, often probably beyond their control too. And so it is a longer term view, but with the, you know, the tenaciousness of following up on calls, following up on emails, probably past, you know, your personal sense of, oh, this feels uncomfortable, you know, it's too much, but you know, it's coming from this place of a good offer for them.
I would say, you know, in early days when we started back in 2009, going, and I think you guys heard our story, it, you know, took us several months to get 10 mentored matches. I mean, we worked hard to get that, and with no credibility. We just basically a new program, trying to go out and convince mentors and mentees to be together in this new mentorship program. So it's going to take some time. So, you know, there may be some pressure on you to have a certain amount of numbers, but you know what, also focus in, and Rana, you've said it, you know, like it's frustrating and it's, you know, you feel like you're pushy. This is a time to really work on your, you know, sort of recruitment, sales skills, and you know, kind of, and your listening skills when you're working with clients, and know when to sort of nudge, know when to, you know, sort of provide them with, you know, sort of reminders. But it will come. And you know, we look at what we have today. I mean, and with our programs in Calgary and Edmonton, it took a long time and a lot of frustrations like you've experienced. And even when we still have that, but we learn to sort of, like Sarah and Azume, learn to just sort of move quickly between, you can't concentrate just on one client. For you guys right now, you may want to concentrate on those individual clients, and that's because you have the time. But also think about your own skill sets as you're, you know, like, you know, how you're conducting yourself, how you're finessing your reaching out and making connections. And, you know, like as Cheryl said, you know, like, this is a great offering that I'm giving you. This is not just my program delivery outcomes. This is, I'm giving you an opportunity to be partnered with a mentee and being part of their journey, and you becoming a better leader, a better interculturalist, you know, understanding that there's differences between the culture and the Canadian culture, the home culture of the client, but also the Canadian work culture here. Knowing those are all learning moments, and those are very enriching.
Great. Well, thanks. I see we're sort of coming to the end of our time. Really appreciate your participation and your questions. You know, this always feels like it's just a little taste of building the culture and the community of mentorship in Alberta, you know, conversation at a time, a coffee at a time. I've put links for our upcoming sessions. If you haven't registered, our next one is on February 11th. And so it's a little late, Rana, for your matching work, but hopefully that'll be supportive. Please feel free to share these with people you know who might be interested. And Annette, thanks very much for doing such a great job in pulling together sort of what comes out of these sessions and turning that into article forms on the website. This is a place where, you know, we're really building the value of the platform together. And so thank you very much for everyone who's contributed to that. We're around, you know, feel free to reach out through the website to us individually. If you have questions, you don't have to wait for the next session. But best of luck with, I know you're hard into it for the folks from Fort McMurray in getting your program launched. And Corinne and Holly, I'm hoping that this is good food for thought as you're in your processes where you're at. So take care, everyone. Stay warm. Have a good day.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks all. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.